The war between Palpatine's forces and the soldiers of Earth was now raging on for a whole month. In that time, the galactic invaders had gained immense amounts of territory as they expanded north and south. The Americans lost 34,000 men in that short amount of time, and Canada lost 2,000. It was disheartening to some that they had only been able to kill about 5,000 of the enemy, which had increased its forces with its first major wave of reinforcements. In some parts of Europe, they did not seem to care about the galactic invaders, and instead aimed at inner concerns as they saw this as an opportunity or overconfidence of their own capabilities. But December proved to be a bit more prevailing for the people of Earth. The enemy's pacing slowed down, and on some parts even counter-assaults were organized. These were often done in the mountains and dense forests by infantry, and open fields mostly dominated by artillery. By now, the British had also set foot and got involved in the fighting. Many of their troops were chosen to defend the dockyards down south along the coast. More land inward, some of the French had started to aid the American and Canadian troops. Where the battles in the forests and mountains could now be won by the American infantry, the flat terrain of the farmlands was a different story. The stormtroopers traversed the lands at a great pace. For spearhead attacks, they resorted to lighter armor in the form of the TX-130. Rather than a walker that was slower, the TX-130 had a more similar design to that of a traditional tank, even with a gunner on top of it. The speed and size of these vehicles made them difficult to hit and pinpoint by artillery. The Americans, accompanied by the British, Canadians, and French, resorted to more traditional tactics. They would set up defensive perimeters with sandbags and improvised barricades. They would try to keep the vehicles at bay with AT weapons as their riflemen did the rest. Often it came at a great cost. A single TX-130 was able to rip a full squad of soldiers to shreds in seconds. Their backup mortars also were deemed KIA in a short notice. Many of the soldiers would fall back and fire at the enemy from the nearby farmhouses, but a few stayed near the sandbags to try and kill any galactic invader coming too close. The open field did not provide cover for them, so they had to resort to using any TX-130, even crippled ones, to provide this necessary cover. With a few lucky shots, the US and British tanks were able to destroy a couple of enemy armor, along with the help of the AT gunners on their left flank. In the event of an exploding TX-130, it often was accompanied by the destruction of several units who took cover near it. Battles like these were fierce and took a huge toll on both sides. There were battles where the galactic invader would breach through, and then there were those where they would retreat to fight another day. In January, the assaults by Palpatine's armies had turned into chaos. Several high-ranking officers had underestimated the Earthen armies to succeed into achieving counterattacks. This cost multiple high-ranking people their lives, as they were killed for their repeated failures. By now, many countries had bled side by side fighting against a common enemy. Though the difference in loss was still staggering, the earthen infantry did manage to become ever so more efficient at claiming a higher kill count. Some cities that had been overrun were even taken back. This meant that some of Palpatine's armies had to turn around and retake these places again. This gave the other armies more land inward the time to set up either a solid defensive line or preparations for a counter-assault. For the rest of January, the people of Earth were able to hold the line and prevent the stormtroopers from advancing further. But in the back of their minds, many soldiers feared the day where Palpatine would send in another wave of reinforcements. By using these strategies, the people of Earth had also prevented the galactic invaders from ever reaching Canada. US soil had been the only thing poisoned thus far by the invaders from outer space, and the people of Earth would see to it that it stayed that way. With the help of the bombastic artillery from sea as backup, British soldiers managed to take back Washington, a tremendous victory and morale booster to soldiers everywhere. But that feared day of a new wave of reinforcements did indeed arrive. Another 100,000 units were sent to the surface, and in no time, Washington was taken back. The price of victory was still paid with a heavy toll, but because of the British resilience, the dockyards held. By the end of February, it became clear that the enemy would advance further west without too much of a hassle. A new proper defensive line needed to be built in order to prevent any further loss. The French and Canadians continued to succeed in keeping the stormtroopers out of their border, but their leaders were worried about the front line to the west. And then on February 28th, the news came out that London had fallen. Palpatine had set in a new operation of invading another nation. As one continent had already been invaded, it was now time to attack Europe. starting with Britain. With everyone's focus on America, the British initially were overwhelmed. Their navy was amongst the most powerful in the world, but Palpatine's soldiers did not arrive from the water. They quickly spread out across British lands, as their army seemed crippled with the amount of reinforcing soldiers sent to America. People asked themselves if this would be the first step in the downfall of Europe.